This is Simple Practices for Improving Writing. My name is Molly Poppy, and this is room 22. All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here, especially at 8:30 in the morning. I have a 2-year-old who likes to wake me up at 5, so I feel really awake right now, but I'm guessing that's not everyone's feeling. I just want to get a feel for where everybody is from. I got to meet some of you beforehand, but if you would like to share where you're from, I won't make you, but raise your hand and I'll call on you old school classroom style. Yeah.
New Jersey.
New Jersey, all
You
right.
might be the only one.
There you go. I love it.
Seattle, Washington.
Awesome. I already got some spread.
Katy, Texas.
Okay. Yeah.
Lincoln, Nebraska.
Lincoln and Indianapolis. Okay. Wow. Hey, I hear that's a great place to live. Everyone should move there. That's where I'm from. Yeah, thanks for being here today. I'm hoping we are all going to grow as writers, myself included, because you have something to teach me today too. And this is what I pitched to you. This is what you read in the app. And so I ask you all humbly to keep me accountable. I would like someone to read this out loud. Who likes to read out loud? Oh. Yeah.
You have a story worth sharing. In this workshop style class, we will explore techniques for engaging your audience, clearly and concisely conveying your main point, and leaving the reader or hearer with an eternal takeaway.
Thank you. So that's what I ask you to keep me accountable for. If you feel if at any point we're missing one of these things, just call me out, raise your hand, say, hey, where does that fit in? Or at the end of the session, I missed this. Where can that be? Because this is the first time I've presented this, so there might be places where I think that I've conveyed this and you haven't received it. So therefore, I'm not meeting my reader or my hearer where they are. So help me stay accountable to that throughout this presentation. I also ask you just to be interactive. It's way more fun when everyone's talking and you bring something to the table as well. There's literally hundreds of speakers here, and there's nothing more frustrating at best practices where you have so many options and you've chosen a session and you walk out going, that is not what I thought I was going to get. So I want you to make sure that that's what you get today. I'm gonna put that in your hands. All right, so here's a little bit about me. These are my favorite people in the world. My husband Nathaniel, my sons Zadok, Titus, my daughter Esther, and Basil, who is here with us today. You can tell we're school teachers because our children have unusual names. And they are the best part of me. I want to tell you a little bit about my love of words and where I got to be here today. I've always loved words. My English teacher from high school is actually here today. My mom, right over there, proud homeschooled kid, and one of my college professors, arguably my favorite, Debbie Arfston, is also here today. And she did not spare me the red pen in college, so I'm a little nervous that she's here. I've always loved words. I got my degree I'm a DCE. I'm an elementary school teacher, but I did an emphasis in middle school English, just because words are awesome. I was in youth ministry for a couple of years. I taught second grade for a couple of years. But then my husband became a principal and we moved to Concordia, Missouri. And I just felt a little bit lost. I didn't have a job. I was just home with my two kids. And I thought, okay, I love words. How can I do that? How can I still glorify God? And we are flipping a house, and at the beginning, if you've ever flipped a house, you know that there are moments where you are outside in your backyard washing your dishes in a crock pot with your hose. And I just wrote about that experience, and a lot of people connected with me on that and said, hey, I've been there. Whether I've been washing dishes in a crock pot in my backyard, I've been there in that moment in my life. And that was the first time I thought, wow, God has given this amazing ability to us to connect to people with our words, and how can we continue to glorify Him in that? How can I do that even though I'm home with my 2 kids? So I chiefly write memoir and storied devotionals, but there are thousands, there are millions of ways we can connect to people with our words. So I want you to turn to someone nearby you, and I want you to tell them what you write. Do you write lesson plans? Because that's you want to grow in that. Do you write sermons? Do you write Instagram posts? Do you write school newsletters? What do you write? I want you to turn to someone and share that with them. Hi, welcome. Thanks for sitting in the front. What do you write?
What do I write? I don't write often, which is kind of why I'm here.
Okay.
A lot of children's messages, like larger talk times.
Yeah, awesome.
Not a lot.
Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing. And give yourself credit. That's a lot. Children's messages, those are important.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sorry to be late.
No, you're fine. Thanks for sitting in the front. All right, I know you probably, if you're writers, you like to talk too, so you could probably talk for a while, but I'm going to call you back. I would like another person to read. I've got two quotes up here from Andrew Peterson. Anyone heard of Andrew Peterson before? He's a Christian. He's an author. He's a songwriter. He does some children's stuff as well. But he has this really beautiful book called Adorning the Dark, Thoughts on Community Calling and the Mystery of Making. And I highly recommend it. But I'd like someone to read these two quotes for me, please. Anyone? Hey, you in the back.
So what? Since we were made to glorify God, worship happens when someone is doing exactly what he or she was made to do. When we manage to make something pretty, it's only because we are ourselves a flourish on a greater canvas.
Yeah. So you are here because God created you, and you get to be his creation and still create. I just think that just gave me goosebumps right there. That is beautiful. And so we worship the God of creativity when we use the gifts that he gives us to the best of our ability. And I truly believe that as Christians, we are called to make the very best because we worship the very best. We shouldn't put anything less than out there because our God is the best and he's given that to us. Now, I have written some really terrible stuff. I have forgotten punctuation marks. I have written things that no one comments on, and I'm like, oh man, that didn't stick with anyone. We also worship the God of grace. So it's all about grace, guys. We love God. But I just want to leave you with that. Like, you create because you were created. But who has the time to write well? I mean, we live in a very busy society. Who has the time to put into that? And I argue that you do. You do have the time to put into that. And I want to give you some physical tools to take away with you today. So the first one is some questions to ask yourself before you write. Now, I want to challenge you again today to think outside of the box. You know, and when we think of writing or fiction, words like that are up here, I'll go through these. But when you think of those words, you might have an instant reaction that comes to those words for you. Something you were taught maybe in second grade. I probably taught it to a second grader at some point. But I want you to think beyond what those words mean. For example, are you writing fiction or nonfiction? Now, we would normally think of fiction in terms of, are you reading like a third grade novel, are you reading Harry Potter, or are you reading something that comes off the self-help shelf at the library? But fiction can be anything that is not factual. Nonfiction is something that is factual. So I want you to ask yourself, am I writing fiction or am I writing nonfiction? The second question I encourage you to ask, there's a spot right up here if you would like, yeah. Are you writing expository or a story? Expository, some examples of expository would be like a listicle article, something you find 10 ways to improve your golf swing. That would be expository. A story, that is someone's being put on a page. And there's nothing wrong with expository, there's nothing wrong with a story, but you need to figure out which one you are writing before you step down to the page, because that's going to help guide you. This one's a real kicker, and it's in the middle for a reason. Why are you writing? Are you writing because you need to get something off your chest, which is totally okay. It's great to write for yourself. I write for myself all the time. If I'm mad at my husband, I write it down. Because by the time I get to the bottom of the page, I'm like, maybe he didn't mess up that bad by not loading the dishwasher. You know, like you write it out. You write it out. It's a really good way to express yourself. But if you're writing for yourself, you're going to write totally differently than if you're writing for an audience. which leads us to our next question. Who is your audience? And some of the tools I have to give you later are going to lead directly into how to speak to your audience, but you do need to ask yourself, who is your audience? If you're writing an Instagram post because you want to draw youth in, that's your audience. If you're writing a school newsletter, who's your audience for a school newsletter? The parents, yeah. If you're writing a sermon, who is your audience? Your congregation. Yeah, some of these are going to be easy. Some of these are going to challenge you. And then, what do you want your audience to take away? I gave you an example of this earlier. The pitch on the Hova app or Hova. I don't know. Someone said Hova. Someone said Hova. The pitch that I gave you on that is sneak peek. That's my what do you want your audience to take away? And it's not bad to have that in your writing. You want your audience to take it away. It's okay. It's not like a spoiler. That's what you want to give them. And then I kind of answered this already, but are you writing for yourself or for your reader? There are times when this will switch. It's okay. There are times that you will start writing for yourself and you realize, maybe someone else can connect to me through this. Maybe someone else needs to hear this story that I have. And there will be other times where you think you're writing for someone else and then you get halfway through and you think, no, I think I'm going to keep this. I think I'm just going to hold on to this. This is going to be part of me that I'm going to save. And it could change 10 years later. You never know. All right, now this is why you need a pen and a paper. So as I said, this event is sponsored by exhibitors who did not want to take home their stuff. So there's a few pens. There were a few pens. There's some pads of paper over there. I have a single pen if someone needs a pen. I really do encourage you to do it on an actual pad, paper. There's just something to it. There's research on it. I did not cite it in this, so you'll have to look that up on your own. But I encourage you to do that. I have 2 different prompts. I just pick which one you want. Maybe you always write nonfiction. Maybe you're always writing. Maybe you write Instagram posts. Maybe you're an influencer and you're in here. If you are, hi. But I just pick which one you want to do. So the fiction prompt for you is rewrite a Bible story from the perspective of a different character. For example, David and Goliath through Goliath's eyes, or Adam and Eve through Eve's eyes. Instead of that kind of overarching idea, just what was Eve feeling in that moment? Or your nonfiction prompt, write about a recent interaction or impactful moment. For example, you just ran into an old friend while grabbing an ice cream bar, the feeling of peace you experienced when you were walking your dog at sunrise last week, or a recent career change or family emergency that has shifted your perspective. I'm going to give you 7 to 10 minutes to write this down. It's going to feel awkward and long at first, but I really want to encourage you to dive into your writing. Just lose yourself. And guess what? It's not going to be good. It's not. It's really not. Give yourself permission to write terribly, because that's the only way we're going to be able to chip away the parts that are not meant to be there to keep what should be there. So I'm going to give you 7 to 10 minutes. I'm going to kind of read the room a little bit. Take some deep breaths, choose what you want to write, and go for it. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop you there. It's been about 7 minutes. Many of you are still writing, which I think is good. That means you have more to share, and I encourage you, if you want to, come back to this later. Just tuck it in your pocket. Some of the best stories have come off of receipts and napkins and things like that. So you never know. You never know. The quote that I did not write down on this was that the difference between a normal person and a writer is that writers write things down. So everyone's got them up here. So grab my paper. Here are the things we are going to go through to edit. For you to take this paragraph or 2 paragraphs or 6 pages, I don't know how prolific of a writer you are, for you to take this and to build on it. I love things that are cheesy. I am a DCE by training, and if you've ever worked with middle schoolers or high schoolers, the cheesier it is, the more it's going to stick in their brain. And I think the same is true for us adults. We just don't like to admit it. So the treasure chest. So we are going to unlock the treasure chest. Or if you like this better, if you just need to get it off of your chest, however you're going to remember these 5 things. I want you to carry the treasure chest in your pocket so that no matter where you are, no matter what you are writing, you will be able to take these 5 things, or 4 or 3, whatever you need in the moment to grow your writing. Something I did want to bring up, thank you, is that I am going to post this PowerPoint later to the Whova app. I didn't post it yet for a few reasons, but I will later. So if you can take pictures of the slides all you want and write the stuff down, but if you want, it will be available later for you to come back to. The first thing we're going to do, the first thing that you want to do, and this is why you ask who your writer is. You want to connect to your writer. Now this quote up here, I'm going to have someone read it. Anyone? Yeah.
Just because it happened doesn't make it interesting.
Yes. So many times you might think, oh, I've got this hilarious story, and you tell everyone and they're just giving you blank stares, and you're like, and then I found $5, right? Just, you want to bring it back somehow. Yeah, just because it happened. But you can make it interesting. There are some really boring things out there that the right storyteller will draw you in. You'll be like, wow, that is your kid spit up on you, what? And you're like in the story, but it's really not that exciting. The way they tell it is what draws you in. So you don't want your reader to walk away. You don't want your hearer to walk away. You want them to be engaged. You want to rip them right away. You want to pull them by the shirt collar and look in their eyes, and they're like, yeah. So why does your reader want this? Why does your hearer want this story or this expository or whatever you have to give them? Why do they want that? So I'm just gonna let you think for 30 seconds, and I'm gonna have you share with a partner, because think of your audience. So share with your partner who your audience is. Maybe you have several audiences, just pick one, and share with them why you want to connect with them. So just give you 30 seconds to think about that, who your audience is, and why you want to connect with them.
So from what we wrote?
From this or any right? Yeah, from this specifically today, or like if you earlier you shared what you write, like children's messages, or if you write blog posts, or you write school newsletters, sermons. Just pick one thing that you write, who your audience is, and why you want to connect with them. Does that still make sense? Feel free to call me out if it doesn't. All right, go ahead and share a different person, same person, however you want to do it.
All right. Well, I'm a pastor, so I'm in a congregation.
Awesome.
I want them to know who Jesus is. His love.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Something simple.
Yeah, thank you. It's sometimes simple is the best, isn't it? Yeah, Jesus. Yes. I'm from Concordia, Missouri.
From where?
Concordia, Missouri.
Okay.
Where are you from?
I've seen your name somewhere. I don't know where it's maybe it's a DCE thing or something.
I am a DCE. You're a pastor.
Yeah.
Where are you
We're
from?
up in been in Trinity Bend.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We're actually looking for a DCE. So. Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah, I've heard.
What part of Missouri?
Concordia.
I mean, what's the part of where's Concordia?
Oh, we're about an hour east of Kansas City, right off of I-70. We, the Lutheran boarding school is in Concordia.
Lutheran boarding school?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. One of our DC, our director of youth, young adult person, is, and that's junior high, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is teaching somewhere in Kansas City.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
He's a native at Trinity Bend.
Oh, okay.
Nice. Him and his wife both taught like within a couple miles of each other.
Awesome. Very cool. It can be beautiful too. Oh yeah, yeah, it's on the corner. All right, thank you. All right, I'm gonna call everyone back together. So the other thing that you just did, you connected with the people in this room. You connected with them. So not now, but later, maybe think about why you connected with the other people in this room that you were sharing with too. Connection is so important, right? That's one of the biggest things I think we've learned through the pandemic is the value of connection and how we do that. You can connect with someone online. I'm not saying that that's impossible, but there are places where you connect better in person. There are places you connect better over Zoom or over Instagram. You want those connections, but where are they coming from for you? And how can you give those to your reader? So I'm not going to have you do this particular one on your page just because you may have been writing for yourself. But we are going to move to human. Human. This is important. You need to be a human. The characters in your story need to be human. So ask yourself, who are the characters in my story? And how do I make sure they're human? So we took the example of a school newsletter earlier. You might think, oh, it's a school newsletter. I'm married to a principal, by the way, so I'm just going to keep coming back to the school newsletter because I help him edit a lot of those. Who are the characters in your newsletter? All right. What do you think? Who are the characters in a school newsletter? Teachers, students, staff, yeah. Are they human in your newsletter? Hopefully. What makes them human?
Emotions.
Telling about their experiences, yeah. If it just lists your teacher's name and what they teach, yeah, that's human. That's a human quality. But what about their humanity, going back to connection, what about their humanity is going to connect them to your audience? So I want you to think about 2 questions. I apologize. I will add those questions to the PowerPoint later. We had some tech difficulties when I was signing in. So these 2 questions will be on the PowerPoint later, but unfortunately they'll just have to live in your head for the moment. But I want you to, or you could write them down. Yeah, look at you go, being a writer. What does it mean to be human on the page or on the screen? I lied, 3 questions. Who are the characters in my narrative? And how do I make sure they are human? I will say that one more time. What does it mean to be human? Who are the characters in my narrative? And how do I make sure they are human? I mean, look at Jesus Christ. He became a human. Right? We want to connect with him on that level. So I'm going to invite you to turn once again to your people. Or if you're just like one of those solo people that's like, she's made me talk to another person like 4 times now and I'm done. Then you can just write it down on your page. It's cool. Just like shut yourself down and people will understand. Some of us might be introverts in here. I get it. That's why we write sometimes. But if you want to share, turn to someone or write on your own page answering as many of these questions as you can. I'll give you just a couple minutes once again.
Now we're friends.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop you. Finish up your conversations. So a good friend of mine is a Christian author. She writes historical fiction. She wrote a really great book called She Will Be Called. If I'll tell you later. It's about Sarah, Abraham's Sarah, and it's a novel about her life, and it's heavily researched. I highly recommend it. I'll let you know later about it. But she hired a writing coach while she was writing this book to improve her. And I want to share with you a little nugget that the writing coach told her. She was writing from the Bible, obviously, Sarah, and the coach told her, "You are writing like you know the ending. You are writing like you know what's going to happen," because you do. I mean, everyone knows this, not everyone, but many people know the story of Abraham and Sarah. And she was writing like that. And the coach said, "Don't experience it with your reader." So that's this little nugget I'd like to share. We all have access to Google, but what we want is your story. We want to share with one another. We want to connect. Okay, editing. So here's a little secret. Great writers are actually great editors. If you don't edit, I would argue either you are superhuman, you're an amazing writer, or you're not willing to put in the time to be a great writer. Or you are lazy, yes. Thank you. I can't say that, but...
That's why it's so much easier to write on a computer, because you can go back and say, no, this, and you can erase it right away. Writing longhand is not easy to edit.
You got my secret, yeah. It's true, though. It is. It's so much easier to edit on the computer. And there's nothing wrong with editing on the computer. Obviously, it's a great tool. Yeah.
The hard thing is if you love editing so much, you edit while you write, you've got to stop.
Oh, honey. Yep. And that's exactly. That's why I told you, write terribly. Write terribly. Just do it. Put it on the page. Make it so that when you go back, you say, "Oh, gross." Marion Roach, who I've quoted her quite a bit. She has another great book. She says it's a vomit first draft. Like you just, and does anyone like to go look at vomit? No. But yes, I feel you. Yeah, you edit while you write. It's hard. It's hard not to, because no one writes the perfect first draft, but we all want to, don't we? Yeah, we don't have time for that. I don't have time to go back and edit. Katie Blackburn is a writer. She's just a mom influencer, but she wrote that the first 2 paragraphs she writes are often just the bridge she needed to get to what she actually wanted to share. And soak that in for a second. If you sit down and write, maybe the first page is just what you needed to do to get to the meat of what you wanted to write. So don't be afraid to take that out later. Okay, it's okay. And you know what? If you're a saver, if you're a hoarder, if you're not wanting to give up, just keep another file on your computer where you keep all the stuff you've cut out. You don't have to delete it forever. That's the other beauty of being online. Is you can cut it out, you can paste it in a different document. I do that sometimes because I'm like, I'm not ready to get rid of this yet. Maybe this will be helpful later. It's just not necessary for what I'm writing here.
Well, I can,
Yeah.
sometimes getting started is a problem. So I always feel like I need a hook or something to get. I know what I'm going to say later, but getting that hook to start what I'm going to write is sometimes the problem.
Yes, thank you. And that often doesn't come until later, does it?
Right.
But you just have to get the words out because then you won't get the hook later.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. Yeah. Marion Roach, again, I said I quoted her a couple times. She once wrote 45 drafts of an essay before it was published for the New York Times. 45. I don't know about you, but I do not have that kind of patience most of the time. You know, that's a lot, but it was worth it for her. Yeah, yes, for the times, true. No, yeah, not for a school newsletter. I'm not, yeah, no. So each time you edit, if you struggle with getting back into the editing, pick one thing to focus on every time. Don't be like, I'm going to make this better in one go. Just pick one thing to look at when you go back every time. And say to yourself, maybe give yourself that time. Like, I'm going to go through this essay 5 times. The first time I'm going to look for passive voice. The second time, I'm going to look for use of verbs. The third time, I'm going to look for making it a little more meaty. You know, the fourth time, I'm going to look to cut out unnecessary stuff. Just give yourself that. If you need a checklist, if you're a box checker, if that helps, just pick one thing to go through every time and check it off as you go through. Reading out loud. How many of you heard that like in a middle school English class and then you were like, nah, it's not going to help? I can't tell you how many times I have caught simple spelling or grammar errors because I read it out loud. It's a big thing. And then Stephen King famously said, kill your darlings. And that goes back to connecting with your reader. Just because it means something to you doesn't mean that your reader needs to hear it. So sometimes you're going to have to kill those darlings. But once again, put those darlings in another little box. Maybe even call it the darling folder. You know, these are the things that I felt like were necessary to this essay, but I'm gonna cut them out because my reader doesn't need that right now. Kill them and kill them. Sometimes we think we need a big long thing, and you have a word count. Most often, if you have less than the word count, but you say what you need to say, they'll accept your article. That's happened to me a few times when I've submitted. I thought, I haven't met that 10 to 1,200 word count limit, but I don't. If I add anything to this, it's just going to be fluff. And I submitted it, and it's gotten published. Yeah.
Do you have any tips for breaking out of that? Because I feel like when you're in school, they're like, you have to meet your word count, and then I ran into the problem where I was like, but I said everything I wanted to say, and I haven't hit my word count, and I feel like it's supported and like well written, and I don't know, I can't add anything else to this, so it's going to be bad. So do you have any advice for like breaking out of that habit of like adding fluff because you were trained to?
I want to think, does anyone else have any advice they want to add to that?
So something else that I guess like Stephen King says on his book on writing is just like, however long it, like forget any deadline you have. However long it takes to tell the story, like end it there. I know like when I go to write, I'm an author, and I always like set myself like an arbitrary goal of like 300 pages. If I don't get to it, I'm freaking out, and I'm like, wait a minute. However long it takes to tell the story, that's how long it should be. And just like end it there. And so like, yeah, like you're saying, if you feel like you're adding fluff, you probably are.
On the other hand, I think like 500 word count, that is brutal. It's like your every word has to count.
Yeah, exactly. It can be hard, but there's a reason for that number, you know, but it's coming back to it. Yeah, and I would say, echoing what he said, I'm going to say it just so the recording hears it, you know, if you feel like it's adding fluff, it probably is adding fluff. But I get that there's that mental thing. So I'd say also just, if you feel like there's more to be had, and this goes into something else too, have someone else read it. Yeah. Give it to your friend. Maybe you have friends who like to write. Maybe you have friends that don't like to write. But give it to them and say, what do you think this needs? And if you give it to 2 people and they say nothing, then you're probably good. But it is going to take practice to break yourself out of that. And that's the other thing about writing. You just do it and you do it every day. And that's just the thing that's going to build on it. Yeah, thank you so much. That's true. If you feel like you're adding fluff, I love that. Maybe I'll add that. Is it okay if I add that to the PowerPoint? I'll quote you. So now I'm going to give you a little time to look back on your pad of paper. Before you do that, I'm just going to give you, I want you to do it old school. Did I save my paper? Maybe I didn't. There I did. I want you to do it old school, okay? Cross off words, write things above it. I encourage you to take out at least one sentence, just to practice killing your darlings. Now, don't be like, I'm going to stick it to her. I'm going to take out the most important sentence. Use your noodle. Okay. But just look for important context. Like if you wrote in a Bible story, think about experiencing it with your reader. I think I'll read this out loud for you. I wrote just a little bit for experiencing the Garden of Eden from Eve's perspective. And I wrote, I was walking through the garden looking for Adam again, when suddenly a voice I didn't recognize came from behind. Now, after I read that, after I wrote it, I went back and read it, and I thought, she would not have been angry at Adam. She was perfect. They were happy. They were in marital bliss. So take out looking for Adam again. Find something better to write there. Then I said, hours later, I was able to look back. I was shaking uncontrollably. I felt empty and cold, lost. Okay, I looked back later. She would not have felt cold. She didn't know what cold meant, probably. She would probably have tried to describe it based on experiences she'd already had. Empty is probably the better one. And then I also said, Adam was still next to me, but he felt further away somehow, as if when I touched him, I couldn't actually feel him anymore. And I said, show, don't tell. You don't want to tell your reader something. You want to show them something. So me saying she was shaking uncontrollably is going to mean more than if I just say, I felt sad, So think about some of those things if you wrote that. Just cross it off. Make notes to yourself. You don't have to have the right sentence now. Just make a note and be like, come back to this later and fix it. So I'm going to give you around 5 minutes for that. Really dig deep into your words. And you can add more to it, too, if you want to continue the story. Okay, I'm going to stop you there. Hopefully you're able to find some ways to improve this. But we need to move on. And this is one of my favorites. Writing to the 5 senses. Senses, that's the S in Treasure Chest. This is a creative exercise from Anne Swindell. She's a Christian author. She teaches writing courses as well. And this one is fun because you get to really get tactile with it and think about it. So it doesn't take too much describing, but I'm going to go ahead and read just for people who are listening. What could you hear? What could you see? What could you taste? What could you touch? And what could you smell? Show, don't tell. You want to show your reader where you are. You don't want to tell them. How do you say I'm at best practices without saying I'm at best practices? I'm in the sun with an ice cream bar, right? Do that in your writing now. I'm going to give you a little less time, but this one's fun, so just have fun with it. Oh yeah, question?
I just had one thing that really opened up my role with my middle son is there's actually a 6th sense. And it is called the vestibular sense.
I love that, vestibular. I'm going to say that all day.
Dysfunction in that, and we had to do therapy too, but basically it's where you think you are and where you actually are in space. So he had a dysfunction where it was different. So where he thought he was and where he actually was different. And so he would fall out of chairs or run into walls because where there was a disconnect there. So like that vestibular sense, sometimes I think about that as with the senses.
Yeah.
Where you think you are in space.
Yeah.
Kind of significant or
yes.
things in your writing.
For sure, because that's what the whole point of a story is your perspective of where you are and how you can bring someone into that. Beautiful. I love that. So, your vestibular sense as well. All right, about 5 minutes. A little less maybe. All right, I'm noticing pens slow down, and it is the morning session, and my goal is not to put anyone to sleep, so we're going to move on just in case. I hope that was a fun one for you. That's one that probably won't use in every single writing that you do, but it can be fun to use, especially if you're stuck. If you're at a spot where you're like, oh, this needs something, but I'm not sure what, this can be a fun one to pull out at that moment to help grow. And even if it's just for you, maybe it's a sentence that you add, but you don't keep. All right, the next thing. We're going to play a game, okay? Thesaurus. When you think of using your thesaurus for writing, I want to argue. I'm actually going to switch to this side of the room for a little bit. I want you to think about your audience once again, because when you think about adding a thesaurus, you might think, oh, I just need to use important words. I need to use the exact right word. It's true, you need to use the exact right word, but you need to use the exact right word for who is going to read or hear what you're saying. So I made 3 lists of words. They were fun. I want you to try to guess who I was trying to reach with those words. And I'm gonna up the ante here. I have stickers My dad is a pastor in Hawaii, and we have some bumper stickers that say Ashi on them, Our Savior Hawaii. And if you guess it correctly, I will give you approximately 30 stickers. Just kidding. I'll give you a sticker if you want more. You can get one later. But just for the fun of the game, icky, plop, humongous. What do you think? Kids? Anything specific? What was I writing? What was I writing?
A description of something.
Ice cream.
A description of ice cream. Okay, you started out really broad. You got really specific. I'm in the middle here. What do you think I was writing? What is something that we would write? I'm a DCE. What is something I do? I was writing about food, yeah. I was writing to kids about food or something.
An event.
Is an event, yeah?
Children's message.
A children's message. Thank you. There you go. You get the sticker. Yes. If you say those words in church, you're going to have every kid's eyes on you, right? Impactful, energizing, spiritual. What do you think? What do you think that was? Newsletter. Best practices. Yeah, describing best practices. What was the physical thing being written? A devotion. Yeah, who said that? All right. Yeah. Here you go. There's your Ashi sticker. Happy, committed, safe, potential. What was I writing? Trying to get volunteers. Yeah. In a
VBS. Newsletter.
A newsletter. Yes. Actually, that was a list I took from a different school's newsletter online. Those are words, apparently, that parents want to hear. They want to hear that their kids are going to be happy. They want to hear that teachers are committed, that their kids will be safe, and they'll have potential after being there. I got that through a Google search. So when you think thesaurus, once again, think outside the box. When you're identifying your audience, I identified my audience as parents at my husband's school. What do they want to hear in the newsletter? I don't know. A thesaurus isn't going to tell me that. So I just Googled, what do parents want to hear about their kid's school? Sure enough, there's an article. Not in those specific words, but there was an article on that. And here's just a little hack for you. If you're on a computer, you do a search for a word you're apt to default to, such as said, and I put the period on the wrong side of the quotation mark. Everyone say boo. Fail, I did not edit this well. Do a Control F search and challenge yourself to change at least 50% of them to something more exciting. For example, you could say he walked over the table. That's fair, it works. Or you could say he ambled over the table, or he darted over the table. I'm going to give you totally different pictures. If you're at best practices, why are you ambling over to a table? I don't know, you're a little tired. Why are you darting over to a table? Because the M&M ice cream bars are over there.
It's the last one.
And it's the last one, yeah. So it gives you a different picture in your head. All right, I'm going to move on here. All right, so we went through the treasure chest. And I just want to give you just a quick brain dump of some things to help you grow as a writer as well. I skipped, by the way, I did skip the thesaurus activity because we're already at an hour, and I just want to be respectful of your time. So if you want to go back later and work on that, or if you want to stick around for a few minutes afterwards, I'll be happy to talk you through that. But simple ways to grow. Once again, this PowerPoint will be online, but if you are one of those people that writing it down helps you remember it, I'll leave it up for a couple minutes. Writing every day. That's easy. It's not easy to actually do, but it's an easy one to remember. You just write more. Just realize that no one's going to read half of it, and just get over it and just write. Some ways to do that is if you purchase some writing prompts. I've done that because then you're like, well, I paid for it. I better do it. You can find those online. I'll be happy to give you some ideas of where to look. You can subscribe to them. A lot of people just give them away for free. You can find them on Pinterest, Google search. Begin each day with a timer and write what you're thinking, feeling, drinking, looking at. Just write about it. I am looking at my coffee cup. It is half empty, but I don't want to get up and go to the microwave to do it again for the 15th time. Maybe I'll add some cream to make it more exciting this time. Just write about it. Yeah. You're probably tired of hearing my voice at this point, so could someone read number 4 for me? Journal your Bible study. Yeah. You can answer the questions, or you can journal them, really dig deep into them, thinking more deeply about theological things. Someone can read number 5?
Read a variety.
Yes, that's another one you probably know already, but get out of your comfort zone. Branch out. Read something that you wouldn't normally read. Read junior high fiction. Sometimes there's some really good descriptions in junior high fiction. Number 6. Yes. Have you ever heard a word like, I wrote it down, vestibular? Vestibular. You hear a word, I mean, I'm going to be excited if I find a way to work that in. But if you ever hear a word that you really like, just keep a journal, a little notebook in your purse or your back pocket. You hear someone use a word and you're just like, oh, that is a good word. I want to use that. Write them down. And then when you're writing and you're stuck or you're looking for a way to get started, there's a word. Write from that word. Add that into your thing. Have several words. Or maybe you want to have a bank of words that you use in every writing that you do. Maybe you want to talk about some aspect of God that really appeals to you. Write it down. And then every time you write, bring that list back up and be like, where can I talk about this aspect of God? Where can I talk about that? Number 7. You were going to read number 6. Go for it.
Okay. Make notes of what you like about a book and why it drew you in.
Yeah. Actually write it down. Because, you're usually thinking it. Why did I like this? But write it down. And then when you're writing, once again, come back to it. How can I add these elements to my own writing? Number 8. Read good writing. And there's a reason that's separate from reading a variety. There's a reason that's separate from just reading books. Read good writing. Find people who write well and follow them. Follow them on social media or, yeah.
About that, when reading good writing, I get hung up on grammar.
Oh, I feel you. Let's start a club.
I'm reading something and something is wrong. It's like, I can't get past this. My favorite is split infinitives. I don't know how anybody else feels about that. But does anybody else have this struggle of you come up against it's like a grammar booby trap?
It's so true. Yeah, does anyone else struggle with that? Just show a hand. Raise your hand if you get stuck on grammar, a specific grammar thing or a couple grammar things. Mine is the use of their or your. Oh, it kills me every time.
And that's such an easy thing. Why don't you know that? Why is that not taught anymore?
It is.
Current English teacher. Yes.
No, listen, is that this meme I sent you?
Oh yeah. The treetops glisten and children listen to nothing. Literally, children listen to nothing. It's a meme. It's great. Yeah.
Do you have any favorite go-tos online for quick grammar checks?
Oh yes, yes.
Who and who, and those kind of quick little.
Yes, I do. I have a couple of those.
That are reliable and
Yes. Yes, I have 4 that I like to recommend. The first one is Grammarly. Does anyone use Grammarly currently? Yes. Oh, gosh, what did I do before Grammarly? It's beautiful. Oh, yeah. Don't ask me. But it's already on my computer. I can show it to you later if anyone wants to see it. It's on my my Google Slides presentation even. I edit the NADCE newsletter and the quarterly, and it helps us so much because it takes the skim off, it just catches the easy things, and then we can go back through and really dig in deep. So Grammarly, if you don't have it, it's a free plugin. The second one is the Purdue Owl. We use that a lot in the writing lab. Yeah. They are updating that all the time. If you have a question like what side of the quotation mark does the period go on, you can Google it and Purdue Owl will come up and you can look up whatever part. It's a really useful resource. Specifically for us Lutherans, the LCMS has a style guide. Raise your hand if you knew that the LCMS and the LWML, you're my next one. I promise it's right there. Yes, and so does the LWML. So they'll have a lot of those things that like the Purdue Owl would have, basic grammar things, but they also have Lutheran specific, like how do you refer to God? Do you capitalize H? And some of those things are going to be specific to where you are submitting. So if you are someone who's looking to get your writing out there and to submit, I highly recommend going to their website and seeing, you can just Google LWML or LCMS style guide, I believe, and they will pop up. And so if you're looking to submit to the Lutheran Witness or an LWML quarterly, something like that, you can find their specific style guide and write to what they want to read. Because a lot of Christian publications have different views on whether you capitalize the H when you're referring to God as Him. Or they'll have ideas of which version of the Bible they would prefer you to quote. So
For us.
yes, yes.
For the Synod and us.
That is really helpful, and that's what we use with NADC
And if
as
you
well.
don't look at our style guides, we're going to send it right back.
There you go. They're going to lay down the law. I love it. Yes, and then reading good writing. Yes, just find people who actually know how to write. And a lot of times, I mean, just ask my husband like how much I rant when someone who has a blog gets a book deal, and I'm just, oh, girl, go to college and learn how to write, and then write your book. You've got good things to say, but you need to write a longer sentence, and it needs to not start with "there is." But it's okay. It's okay. If you do that, it's okay. I'm not going to yell at you. I promise. Oh my word! Everyone's going to walk out. Oh, I've offended them in the end. Oh, you made it.
Grace.
Oh goodness. But it's all good. It's all good. Just don't be that person. Continue to grow, right? We're glorifying God, like I said in the beginning. Let's glorify Him with our words. Keep a little notebook of your favorite quotes. I actually keep them as a notes folder on my phone, and then anytime someone says something or I read something that I really like, I just make a note. And then when you need a quote for writing, just pull up that little notebook, or use that, once again, use that as a writing prompt. Write about that quote. Just keep them. Keep everything. That's what writers are. We're hoarders. That's really true. And then join a community. I write for a community called Campfires and Marshmallows blog, and the ladies, we keep each other accountable. We read each other's writing, and we encourage one another. We have deadlines. I joined recently an online community called Exhale, called Creativity for Moms, and so it's just a Facebook group. You know, there's some you're going to pay for, some you're not, but they're going to keep you accountable, and Facebook groups are amazing because you just ask a question. You're like, I want to submit, but I don't know where. Who's got some ideas for me? You know, just really cool things. Lutheran Communicators is another Facebook group if you're not a part of that one already. Now that goes for all sorts of media marketing, etc., but they're writers too. So get connected with that, and that's a free one, which is really nice. Yeah.
One thing I've noticed you've said on almost every one of these points was, and go back to it. That should be on the thing. If you just write all this stuff down and you never go back to it, if you journal but you don't go back to it to process it and really revisit and go back to it.
See, this is why I love it when people talk. I love it. Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, go back to it. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, Mom. I mean, you, lady.
Something, too, is when I used to have time, and I would sit in coffee shops or go to the mall or whatever and watch people. I would take notes about people and what they were doing. Like, oh, that funny guy with that hat, and I want to keep that as maybe a character or something that they look like or they're doing.
I love
what
that.
I've noticed with good writers is that they use a very boring, everyday circumstance, and they keep it in their story as part of just the background even, just kind of interesting.
I love that. Another writing prompt that this totally random woman that I've never seen before gave to me once, paint chips. You know, like when you go to the store and you all those paint, like when you're looking to paint your nursery or something, they have great names on them, don't they? And my mom, we rolled our eyes as kids. We were homeschooled. But we should be like, you have to write a story that includes these in it. You know, the gentle sky. You know, sunset breeze. You know, they've got some great names. That's a fun one. That's a good writing prompt activity. Free. Yeah.
I was just going to make a comment about I like to collect words and phrases too. Yes.
Oh.
But I've heard a phrase twice that people used at this conference, and I went back to our group and asked about it because I thought, well, where did this come from? And then we Googled it, and what society out there is thinking that it's people using they're two different things, and we were all like, oh, we're not going to use that phrase.
That is a great point. Yes. Know your context. Excellent. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Where do you grow in writing? Where are some groups that you suggest being part of? Yeah.
Well, I'm part of the Red House Writers Collective, and she's got what I love. It's by Kathy Lipp. She runs it. She's an Christian author, on folks in the family and all that. What I've learned with what a lot of us are doing is there are the free groups, and then she has a paid group, and then private coaching things. So there are things available out there that are really good. I started out in free group, and but it's a great way, it's Writing at the Red House is what it's called.
Okay.
And it's a great resource, and they talk about, she brings in publishers, she brings in agents, and other writers. So it's coaching at 3 different levels.
That's a really good point. Yeah, kind of explore where you are. Like maybe I'm just exploring this. I want a free group, and then evaluating where you are in your writing journey. Yeah, we are rapidly running out of time. So I'm just going to go, and then I want to give you guys some time to connect with one another at the end. So just some simple organization tips. I'm just going to read this to you since, like I said, we're running out of time. Organizing your writing means using what you have. It does not mean you only write when you have your specific notebook, best pen, or laptop open with an hour of scheduled time. That is everybody's dream, isn't it? But you're not going to have that. It means you write on receipts, you take notes on your phone, you use voice memos, you send yourself texts, you jot notes in the margins of books, you write your thoughts down all the time. But you make a system for it. I have notes everywhere, but I have a specific folder in my computer in Google Drive titled Writing. In it are 2 main folders, Published and In Progress, because you get in big trouble if you try to submit the same thing that you've already submitted. So like, for example, I was published on Coffee and Crumbs blog. They have a very clear rules about when you can use your words again. So I need to keep them in the published folder, otherwise I could even, not that they're going to sue me, I'm not that exciting, but I want to respect them. So you keep it in published and in progress. I track what has been published by putting a simple letter combination in front of the title. So I didn't put it on here, but I use parentheses, and I just use it, and that way it'll categorize it for you on Google. I have, for anything I write for Campfire and Marshmallows, I put in parentheses, and I write C and M, Campfire and Marshmallows, and then all of those are going to be grouped together just because it's alphabetical. That's how I use it. Figure out a system that works for you. Maybe you like having more folders. In progress is anything I've scribbled anywhere else. Sometimes there are documents that just have a few sentences relating to a particular theme. I'll collect all of my thoughts on social media, for example, or on aging. When I have a deadline and I'm not sure what to write about, I will peruse these files and see if I'm feeling up to the challenge of working them into a seamless piece. So if you just collect everything you've thought about best practices in one folder, come back to it later, and then maybe you feel like working it together. Other times I do have a specific story to share, and I'll just type and type and type and type, and then I'll just go back and edit it 45 times, right? All right. If you have questions on that, I'll be happy to answer them, but we are at time. So you already shared this a little bit. This is my son, Titus, being a good reader. He does not wear glasses. He's just borrowing Grandpa's. But, he's adorable. Can everyone just give me an aw? Yeah. And so these are the questions I was going to have at the end, but I just want to be respectful. I don't want you to feel rude walking out. I do want you to, if you have time, find someone in this room to ask them these questions. And I really encourage you to get the phone number or email address of someone else in this room, because this is a room full of writers. And who else is going to encourage you other than writers? So find someone, become accountability partners with one another. I'm not saying you have to email each other all the time, but then you've got one other person in your corner that you didn't know before this conference. So thank you so much. I'm going to come back to this slide, but I do just want to close in prayer and just pray a blessing over you. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for sunshine and best practices and everything from this conference. We just praise you, God. You are so present in this place. We feel it around us. We know you are present everywhere, but there are times that we truly feel it more than others. I pray that you would help us to carry that joy that we have here, the learning that we've gained, all that knowledge, and carry it back to our daily lives. I pray you would bless each one of the writers in this room, that they may go bless their audience, that they may be communicators of your glory. They will create out of their creation, not of what you made them to be. I pray you bless them in all of that. Help them to have safe travels home and to greet their loved ones or those they left behind with joy and their renewed strength, and strengthen others with that. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Thank you very much.